Hi, this is Kendall, and this is Delve in Your Pocket, solo dungeon crawl you can play anywhere. Um, this is an updated video. Always check my videos for the latest. This is a work in progress. Um, and if you appreciate solo games, minimal components, things like that, uh, I would recommend subscribing so you don't miss out on updates. This is also entered into the BGG solo print and play design contest. So I'll have a link to that work in progress thread also. In this update, I've changed from the Pocket Mod booklet format to what's called a Pocket Fold format, hat tip to Three Skulls Tavern for this layout option. I'll link their YouTube video that I came across. But with this, you will print on both sides. And right now, I only have US letter format. I should be getting A4 set up soon. And then I also don't have an Unbound version. The prior version, I had an Unbound where you could draw your own character, choose your animal companion, things like that. But it was in this booklet format. So that will be coming soon. This game does take some inspiration from Dungeon Hero, a Pocket Mod game, and I'll link to that. It also, the game uses a Yahtzee roll and re-roll mechanism that I'll show you. And I definitely recommend using 5 6-sided dice, physical dice, just because it's funner. But if you have a chance where you don't have access to a die or dice, then I do have a workaround. This board has been beat up a little bit, just marked, but yeah, you can use the Bard system, business card alternate for rolling dice, and you can use the marks to roll 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 dice at a time. So that's also an option. Let me show you how this prints and then how it folds. So, like I said, you will need to print both sides. This feature includes a map and the narrative, the story page here. So, print both sides, make sure that it flips this way so that your encounter numbers here flip this way and the map is oriented. But once you have it printed, you fold it down the center like this. You fold it down the center like this. And then these ones, you do a gatefold inward. And instead of going all the way to the center, I go not quite. And that way you can fold it like that. And then you can cut just down the center here so that as you're playing, you can flip open the map or you can flip open the story side without having to open the whole thing. In this game, you play as Kalen, a ranger who has been mysteriously kicked out of the Watch. You followed rumors to Hollowdeep, but in the process, your wolf, Shadowfang, has vanished within the dungeon. So you are seeking answers, but you're also looking for Shadowfang in the process. Your goal is to survive while you are locating the chamber of the final boss in the dungeon here. And then defeating them. And of course, you're also looking for Shadowfang, and the earlier you can find them, it helps your odds with their special power. So each turn starts in the dungeon map. You roll 2 dice and write it here on the map log. And you can see the 3 is in this red. We've marked off chamber 3, so we know this is not one of the final locations. Sorry, the location. This is not the chamber of the final battle here. And then you can use one of these 2 values of your choice to move within the dungeon. You start on the green middle space. I just marked it with a 1 the end of my first turn. I moved 3 spaces. And then the following turn, you can see a 6 and a 3. I chose the 6 and I ended right here. You also use these numbers for your narratives. So you go to this part right here, and this will give you some prompts. So you counted 3, you had a collapsed stairwell, and then the conflict, we had a goblin ambush. And for the second turn, we went down 6 here to shifting shadows and a collapsing ceiling. And then you write them above these encounters. So let's walk through a turn. I'll show you. So we're going to roll 2 dice. So a 3 and a 2. We're going to write these in. And the 3 is already crossed out. So we're going to choose the closest number to a 3. And if it's tied, so there is a 2 and a 4 still available, you're gonna go with the higher option. So we know that this chamber here is not the final location. And then we're going to choose one of these 2 numbers to move. And we're going to go 1, 2, and we're going to end our third turn right here. Okay, we're going to see what is happening. We're right next to this seal. You need to collect 3 of these in order to open the final chamber. If these skulls are rolled, you mark these off, and they block your passage, so you can't cross through that unless you take a damage. You can use these gateways or waygates, basically a portal, and the cost of transporting is taking a damage or 3 treasures to be able to do that. So the other element here is you cannot backtrack over your steps. So you need to carefully plan where you're walking, part of the curse of this dungeon. All right, so we've got 3 and 2. We're going to record our prompts. So we're going to cross this out and go down 3, 1, 2, 3, cracked pillars. And 2 on this one, 1, 2, haunted treasure. And then if you ever get to the bottom of these, you can cycle back to the top. And you can also start at the bottoms and work your way, just whatever you're doing here. You can also choose not to update the setting or the conflict if you're in a part of the dungeon that, say you moved 1 space and you're still within a given cavern. You may not want to update one or both of those prompts. It's totally optional. It's just part of the narrative feel. Okay, so we had a cracked pillar and a haunted treasure. So we're going to imagine that in this part of the dungeon, we're close to getting a seal, but we can't because we're blocked by some pillars. However, those are cracking. And we are, maybe being tempted by a treasure that is in a trap. So whatever the scenario you imagine, you now roll your 5 dice. Again, you can use this system and roll 5 dice this way. You can also roll 2 dice and then 3 later. You can roll them all individually and then just write them in. That comes in handy if you don't have dice or it's just not practical, but who am I kidding? Dice are the fun part, right? So we roll our dice here. And when you're using this, you will probably want to write them in more. If you are rolling physical dice, you can just manipulate the dice as you go without writing them in. But it uses that Yahtzee mechanism where you can roll and re-roll twice. Okay, so we rolled our dice. These are the combos here. I've kind of renamed them in this version. Instead of a pair or a full house, these are like a rift or a major, just because it felt like I was playing Yahtzee. I didn't want to do that. So anyway, the the strength of this encounter is the sum in the brackets. So this last one was a 4 because it had a 1 and a 3. This one is a 2. And if we have a 2 at the end of this turn on any of the dice we roll, each of them causes 1 damage. And a red one is a stuck die, so you can't re-roll. So in this case, we want to avoid 2s. However, 2s are really how we get our wolf back. Once these gold boxes are filled, we can get Shadowfang back. That's how we find him. So a strength of 2 would be this dyad or higher. So we can get two pairs, basically. And we do have a couple of 3s, a couple of 1s. So we could leave it at that. We could re-roll to try to get some 2s. If we get a dyad with at least a set of 2s, we could use that. Or a rift would be a single pair. But let's go with this. So we have our dice, and then the one that we're not using is actually what becomes treasure. So we have 3, 3, 1, 1, and a 5. So we're going to use these, and we'll write the 5 down here because it's not being used to collect treasure. Even if you get damaged or take damage, you always collect treasure. If you don't have a leftover die, you just roll to fill those in. Or if you have more than one that's not used, you can pick what you're going to keep. So in this case, we don't take any damage because the strength of our attack is a 2. So we meet that. I like to cross this out just so that I know that I took whatever damage I needed to. You can see on the prior roll we're at a 3. I underlined it just so I could remind myself to take a damage for that 3. But here, I crossed this one out to show that I've marked off that combo. So we used a dyad on turn 3. So you can cross it out, or I'm kind of a nerd, so I'll write turn 3. So it had 1s, 3s. So we could enter it here or here. Since it had 1s, we'll put it in here. Turn 3. And once you have this marked, and your treasure, you know that you're ready to either move on or to pause the game, and you can pick up at any point. So that's how you play. You are narrowing down the final location. You try to get to that location, trying to survive in the process. When you make it to the final boss, if you make it there, you roll 2 dice to get your doom numbers, and the red one will be sealed, so you can't re-roll that. And then the special rule here is that you have a limit of 1 treasure, potion, or spell for each of these turns. In these prior turns, you can use a combo. You can use more than 1 combo. You can, say to use this 5 if I wanted to add, for some reason, if I didn't have enough hit points, I wanted an extra pair, I could cross this out, write it in, and circle it, basically using prior numbers so that the die values you have access to are not just 5. Another element is if you have 4 or more of a doom number. So I may want to try for 2s here to try to find Shadowfang, but if you can get 4 or more, then the doom number doesn't cause damage. So that's part of that. But as you're playing this last boss, you take damage if you use if the doom numbers are there, and then you are marking off the amount of attack. There's 18 health here. As you come across these letters, that's where the narrative page comes in. So the first one has an A. B is when you complete these gold boxes. I've covered it with this 2, but there was a B there. And then C, kind of mid-game, and then D and E at the beginning and end of this final battle. So for A, I've actually got that on the back. So we've got a how to play demo, QR code, but we've also got this introduction. And then, so when you get to the B, you would flip open this narrative page, read Web of Shadows. This would be where you pick up to make your way there. You also have these abilities. So Kaylin, as a ranger, gets 2 extra combo uses of any type. So you can mark that off. So you could have more than just what's here. Multi-shot, once per game. You can plus or minus 1 for 2 dice, or you can use the same die and adjust it twice. Mark that off when you've used it. Shadowfang, when he's with you, if you find him, then every 2 that you roll or that's re-rolled can change the results of a die, including that number 2 by 1 or 2. So if you have a 2, you can manipulate a die, which can come in a lot of handy. But if Shadowfang dies, you can see the gold here. These are the hearts, the health you gain when you find Shadowfang. Any of these encounters with a gold box, if damage is taken, then Shadowfang has to take at least one of those hits. And if you ever lose Shadowfang, then you, of course, lose the ability. I forgot to talk about this facet wheel here. We can interpret our results. So this is, optional, but for the storytelling, we had the cracked pillar, the haunted treasure. Basically, the 3s and the 1s were what helped us. So you come over here and you choose either the 3 or the 1. And let's say we used our caution or our alertness. We could say our caution to avoid the issue of the haunted treasure. Well, once you get Shadowfang, the 2s, which were significant to find Shadowfang, and also his special ability is triggered by 2s. Well, anything you interpret about the story, you can also include Shadowfang. That Shadowfang jumped, or Shadowfang was quick or cautious, or just whatever happened with Shadowfang here. So anyway, just some fun optional elements to really tie it together. And then there is an optional scoring where if you defeat the end boss, you count up the treasure that's not used. So any treasure not crossed off, plus any special abilities not used, plus any health remaining, plus any items. Basically, you add all those up to get a score, and then there's a ranking in the ruled stock on how well you did. And as far as the layout here, I'm still playing with it. It may change, but you can mark off the seals as you get them. QR code for the full rules doc. This is the tracking tip that I shared earlier. And then this is a summary of the core loop of the gameplay. The font is a little small, I know, but I'm really maximizing the real estate of this piece of paper. This has been a lot of fun playing this. It's something easy to pause and pick up later, super portable, so it scratches that itch and it ticks all of those boxes. Anyway, I want to say thanks for checking it out. If you appreciate games like this, again, I would recommend subscribing and like the video to help those algorithms. I would love feedback and questions either here on YouTube or as a post in the Board Game Geek thread. But until next time, thanks.